I always realized in time I'd be able to make more money. But if I own my time, then I could make it the way I wanted to make it. So it wasn't about making more money. It was about buying my time back. It was owning my time. And then the interesting thing is, once you own your own time and you figure out how you want to spend it and the things that you do, it's actually pretty easy to make even more money.
Welcome to the 0 to 100 podcast show, where our focus is time freedom through cash flow real estate. And our guest today, Justin Donald, embodies all things important to us here at 0 to 100 and is such a great example, a very good example of someone who has created a life by design and not by default. Justin is the founder of The Lifestyle Investor and host of the Lifestyle Investor podcast show. Justin has been referred to as the Warren Buffett of lifestyle investing. That's a pretty impressive title. Justin is also the author of the best-selling book, The Lifestyle Investor. His book is in the top 1% of all books ever sold. That is quite an accomplishment. Justin is an expert in low-risk, high-cash flow investing and grew a 9-figure net worth through strategic investments, allowing early retirement. Justin owns several real estate-related businesses, including one of the largest mobile home park portfolios in the United States. And Justin, I know that there is a much bigger bio intro, but I want to finish this off with 3. I tried to find like one quote, one just like awesome quote from you, but there were 3 that I needed to steal. And maybe you don't even know when you said this, but I love these and I wanted to start the show with this. The goal isn't to make more money, but to create more freedom. Quote number 2, lifestyle investing is about creating passive income streams that support your ideal life, allowing you to spend your time as you choose. And the third that really stuck out, wealth is not just about making money, it's about the freedom to live life on your own terms. Justin, welcome to the 0 to 100 podcast show.
Hey, thanks, Gabe. Happy to be here. Happy to hang with all you guys.
Welcome, Justin. What a perfect, I was like, we're talking right before we went live, like, man, what a perfect guest. Like, man, he buys mobile home parks. He's an entrepreneur. He's big into lifestyle. Man, he has nothing in common with what we're trying to accomplish here at 0 to 100, which is
it's just like exactly. Yeah.
So Justin, I know you reviewed our book. So by the way, thank you so much for that. Like very similar. We call it R1, retirement 1 for us is how do you generate enough true passive income? Because I think that term gets muddied pretty easily these days. How do you generate enough true passive income to replace all of your living and lifestyle expenses? We call it R1 because it's retirement number 1. Maybe R2 is being philanthropic. R3 is buying franchises. R4 is businesses or growing an empire. But sort of breaking through that first difficult place is getting your 40, 50, 60 hours a week back. Because in my mind, that's when the magic happens. And it looks like you did that when you were 37 years old.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people, kind of look at passive income as this really cool thing that once you get it, it's so sweet, you want more of it. I think most people don't take the leap to even, begin that process. But the ones that do and really get going, they find themselves in a trap of, wow, I've got a lot of passive income, but I also just kind of bought a job. It's like this real estate or this whatever the structure is that's producing the passive income grew so big that it can't just be you doing it. And all of a sudden, you're kind of, taking a few steps back. And then hopefully, if you can build out the right structures and systems, you can take many leaps forward. But yeah, for me, it was just simply like, how do I get this time back? What does that look like? How do I own my time? And I remember when I was transitioning from one business where I was doing very well financially, making a few $100,000 a year, probably closer to, at most years, closer to 400 to 500,000 a year. And I remember when I had finally gotten the passive income to exceed those numbers, and my friends were like, "You are crazy. Why on earth would you ever leave what could be doubling your income? Like you could double up. You can make twice as much money."
More.
Yeah. But my goal from the onset was never to make more money. I always realized in time I'd be able to make more money. But if I own my time, then I could make it the way I wanted to make it. So it wasn't about making more money. It was about buying my time back. It was owning my time. And then the interesting thing is, once you own your own time and you figure out how you want to spend it and the things that you do, it's actually pretty easy to make even more money, because then you're just focused on the stuff that lights you up, that you lose track of time doing it. So that was my experience, at least.
Justin, can we dig into that a little bit? It kind of goes back to that quote of the goal isn't to make more money, but to create more freedom. And it's interesting because when I've had conversations with people, it usually would go to financial freedom. But you dig that little bit, just like one layer deeper, it is almost always time freedom. There's that freedom piece of being able to do what you want, where you want, with who you want, right? Why is it that so many people, you not being one of them, like you knew from, it sounds like the beginning, that time freedom, that just freedom in general was important to you. Why do you think so many people get fixated on the financial freedom piece when really what they're after is freedom of their time?
Well, I think we live in a time, a culture that just screams, compete and do better than your friends, and you can have this too, and you'll be happy when you have these also, and you need multiple homes, and I feel like there's this consumerism that really plagues the culture today, and later in life, I think people realize, oh, I was chasing the wrong rabbit. Like, I thought if I got these things, it would make me feel a certain way. And I finally got these things, but I don't feel that way. So, I just have talked to enough people over the years. And one of the things I've done a very good job of is just meeting up with people that are smarter, better at various things than me, just wise people. And, for 20 plus years, I took someone out to lunch or coffee or dinner and just picked their brain, once a week. So, we're talking about thousands of hours, and you hear enough of the same, wisdom or keys to success. It starts to resonate. And that was just one of them. It's like, don't chase money. It's not about money. Chase time freedom, chase relationships, chase the ability to do the things that you're passionate about. Like, just don't chase materialism, don't chase money.
So Justin, will you go back in time? Because I want to figure out, where were you, say, when in your early 20s, you went into the workforce? Did you have this mindset, or did this mindset develop? Because for me, it developed out of the misery of my job. That was the spark to my, I need time freedom. But I'm curious, what did that look like? What job were you working? What books were you reading? When did that pivot for you?
Well, I think that Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first of the big epiphany breakthrough type of books for me. And I then proceeded to read Cash Flow Quadrant, which to this day I would say is the single most impactful book that I ever read. And then I read everything that Kiyosaki wrote, got a chance to hang with him, meet him, spend time with him, and have just been blown away by what I've learned there. And, it was so impactful for me. That's part of the reason why, for me, building out Lifestyle Investor and doing so many of the things that we do there, I feel like this is the opportunity for other people to, maybe learn some of the creative liberties I've taken with some of that foundational stuff. But, for me, it was probably a little similar to you, Mitch, in that I was kind of fed up, but I wasn't fed up necessarily with work or, what I was doing. It was that I had this realization that I was working crazy hours trying to build a business, and that I was working on the weekends. I was working late. My friends were like, hey, let's go out to the bars. Let's go hang out. And I was still at the office, on a Friday night, on a Saturday night. And it was just, I remember sitting down and I was like, you know what? I'm okay with this season right now. I need to know how to have grit and work ethic and be able to tell my friends, no, sorry, I'm busy building my business. I need to be able to do that. But in 5 years, 10 years, I don't want to have to do that. And when I have a family, I certainly won't be doing that. So it was more like I just knew that I couldn't sustain what I was doing long term. But in the moment, I knew that was my path, because that was the way I had to get ahead. And just to even tie a bow on it more, early on in my career, I don't feel like, I feel like I had a handful of strong skills, but the greatest skill I had was my work ethic. And I don't think my other skills were so strong that they were my outlier skills that I could lean on to produce. But I knew I could lean on my work ethic. In retrospect, I feel like that's actually not, it's like a poor choice, because if I had strengthened these other skills earlier on, it could have been, it could have been even more plentiful, and maybe I could have gotten where I've gotten faster. But at the end of the day, I think for anyone who doesn't have the skill set of whatever it is, whatever thing it is, like work ethic can be the equalizer and can help you get ahead until you develop those other skills. And then if you get out of the hard work and start thinking about smart work, that's when you start developing the other skills.
I love you said that, man. That's a message that needs to be said more and more these days. Like, I do believe there's this like financial freedom, which we're all about. There's this sort of like movement towards hacking the system. And, I see a 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss, great book. Like, there's all these sort of movements, but at some point you just got to go back to like, especially when you're younger and you don't have a family, like sometimes you got to work your butt off. You got to have grit, and you got to put the reps in. And so I guess I'm curious, if we could go back to little Justin, like back to the beginning. I'd be curious to know, like, have you always been an entrepreneur? Have you always thought differently? And also take us through your first business, and then take us up to 37 years old. I will tell you, 20 months you achieved time freedom. At the age of 37, it took you 20 months to finally achieve time freedom, which we're saying all the time, like with the right properties, with the right cash flow, with the right structure, we always say you can do it in under 3 years. You really can. And a lot of times people think you need to work till you're in your 50s or 60s to sort of reach the holy land of replacing your day job. So I'd love to go back to the beginning and then talk through like the business you started, but also like, what were those 20 months? I mean, I read your book, so I have a pretty good idea. But I'd love to hear just in your words.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. I think, I often look at the world through these frameworks. And so I'll answer your question, but I'm going to do it in a roundabout way. Whereas, I kind of look at these quadrants. Ever since reading Cash Flow Quadrant, I just have looked at the world in quadrants. And so there's this quadrant that I look at where it's like, okay, most people are not good at making money. So you can get ahead by being good at making money. All right. Well, from there, you even less people that are good at managing money. So maybe you can make a lot of money, but you're not managing money very well. And then from there, it's an even smaller percentage that move over to the other side of the quadrant that know how to multiply money. And that's an even greater skill set where you can get ahead, really quickly. Which is something that I was able to figure out and unlock. And then from there, the last quadrant would be making money matter. And, we can get into that here, but I think that when we figure out a way to get ahead in life, we have a moral obligation and responsibility to make the world a better place and to do things that help other people get a step up in the world. And so, all those are great spots. I feel like most of your audience is probably good at making money. And then it's like, how do I get better at life and financials than just making money? Because a lot of people make a lot of money, but they don't have a lot to show for it afterwards, right? So, that's kind of like one of the frameworks that I look through. And so for me early on, one of the first things I did when I was in 7th grade, my parents basically said, if you want money, you got to get a job. Now, what I did in 7th grade was crazy, and I don't think we'd do it today, because I went door to door as a 7th grade kid in neighborhoods way far away from my home with some guy who was dropping us off in his minivan, and he would make a commission based on what we were selling.
Oh my gosh.
And I was horrible, you guys. I was so bad.
It's such good experience, though. Unbelievable.
It's a really good experience. But like, this was 100% commission job. I went weeks without a sale, guys. Like, I was really, really bad.
So much rejection.
People all the time, they're like, well, why didn't you quit? And I'm like, the thought literally never crossed my mind. I probably should have quit, but I didn't, because that was never even a multiple choice answer. I just figured I would figure it out at some point. That was it. Probably more dumb luck than anything that I didn't even consider quitting. But I actually got really good at it. I learned how to handle objections. I learned how to be more confident. I created a script. I rehearsed it. It's all these. I learned to build rapport, with the people I'm talking to. I learned to, not take no's personally. I learned to not take slamming the door in my face personally. It's like all these things that toughen you up as a youngster. So I actually got pretty good. And then I started earning really good money. I did this all through high school as well. And then by my senior year, I was taking my own crews out where I would make money off of each person that sold. And so I built my first business out of that. And it really, so for me, I say I got really good at sales. And then I, from there, kind of created a business out of that sale structure. And I did that several times over in a few different areas.
I think it's such a good example too of doing the things that a lot of people won't do. There's a lot of kids that won't do that. There's a lot of adults that won't knock on a door. There's a lot of adults that won't pick up a phone, right? So it's
most.
Most.
Right.
It's a great example.
Yeah.
And I love how you said, I didn't even think about quitting. Didn't even think about it. Like it wasn't even an option. There probably wasn't that many opportunities for a job in seventh grade. So it sounds like you're like, what the heck? Might as well just go for it.
Yeah. And I wanted money.
What were you selling, Justin? Did I miss that? What were you selling?
Newspaper subscriptions. So it wasn't even like I remember helping out one of my best friends at the time, way back when, like anytime he was sick, I would do his newspaper delivery route and make some money. I was like, this is awesome. But the ability to scale, like there's only so much you can make there. The route is only so big. It's hard to like grow the route, right? On a subscription side of things, you can your work ethic dictates the results because it's a pure numbers game. Once you have a skill and your ability to you have the ability to communicate whatever the script is, then it's purely numbers. And if you hit enough numbers, you're going to have X number of sales, right?
For our younger listeners, newspapers, they're these paper things that people used to deliver to your doorstep where you'd read like ads and news. So Justin, I'm curious, what was the most you ever made like in middle school? And what was the most you ever made in a single year in high school in your newspaper subscription business?
Yeah. So, I was making, I started making $150 to $200 paychecks per week for 2 to 3 nights out. Maybe 4 nights out in the very beginning of middle school. In high school, I was regularly making $300 to $500 a week, 2 to 3 nights a week.
For high school back then, dude, like I don't know how old you are, but that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a significant amount. It was much more than my friends were making. And it was actually fun because I like interacting with people. Now, at the beginning, I didn't, and I was uncomfortable and I was unconfident and I was unskilled. And I don't know that I liked it as much then, but once I got good at it, I really liked it.
We say that all the time. We say like, if there's any skill that you can develop, because you're not born with it, it's sales. Sales, obviously you can get a job where you can have a limitless commission, perhaps, right? 100% commission, but you're always selling. In businesses, you're selling to investors, you're selling to customers, you're selling to the bank, you're selling your ideas. Like as an entrepreneur and an investor, like you're always selling. So I love the fact, and so many people started out selling. And so I love that story. That's awesome.
Well, and it's making me reflect. I was delivering newspapers, and here's Justin selling subscriptions. I'm having
a subscription. I own your newspaper company.
You were just chucking them.
I thought I was doing great. I have to rethink my entire childhood. Gosh,
that's awesome.
Let's transition kind of into, after high school and, at some point, you worked a job that you replaced that income. And if I remember correctly, that was with one mobile home park deal. So I'd like to know that story because, it's hard. I don't want to say it's hard. A lot of people have a fixed mindset that there's no way they could replace their income with real estate, especially one real estate deal. So I believe I have that correct, but I'd love to kind of know that transition from high school to the working world to, in your 30s, replacing your income, or I think maybe you replaced your wife's income first, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yeah. So let me tell that story. So basically, so I had considered running the newspaper subscription business in college, but I remember seeing an opportunity to make more. I had a friend that was selling Cutco, and that's how he was paying for college. And I knew some other people had done it. And I got a flyer at my high school graduation. I was like, all right, maybe I should just check this out. So I went in and interviewed and ended up getting that job. And I remember thinking, gosh, these have a forever guarantee. they're actually good and people actually want them. I might be really good at this because I'm good at the thing that no one wants. No one wants a subscription to some newspaper that isn't the one that they want, or if they already have a subscription with no guarantee, with like, I was like, this previous job, I think, prepared me really well. So I ended up selling Cutco. I kept the newspaper route just in case, but then I ended up, right out of the gates doing well, making great money. So then I kind of retired that other business, went full bore into this one, paid for all my college at the University of Illinois by selling Cutco. And then in between my junior and senior year, I ran a branch office for them. So it's kind of the beginning of more of an adult entrepreneurial journey, and did really well that summer. And I remember thinking, wow, maybe this is what I want to do. So I interviewed with a bunch of companies. I had the ability to work with some big name companies out of college. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I mean, I thought I was going to be an investment banker. But I decided I didn't really want to do that, and so, I mean, I took some really cool classes in college at the University of Illinois that are very unique, that, they're, I don't know how they're ranked today, but they were a top 20 business school back then. And it was cool. I was taking, wealth management. I was taking real estate classes. I was taking arbitrage strategy. I was, as a college student, I was in a class. I was selected out of 20 students were selected to manage $1 million portfolio for an alumni. And we did a great job over a year, managing his portfolio. And I had another teacher that when you found an arbitrage via, a merger, an acquisition, a spinoff, whatever, that you show him the deal, he puts in the money, and you split profits 50-50. Like this is my college education, you guys. And so
it's not some professor that's never made it in business.
That is not a common story you get from college.
That's right.
You don't, but I love it though. This is where we need to go with this. I mean, oh my gosh.
So that's why I thought that's what I would do. But I also had so much fun running a team. And so I decided, well, why don't I give Cutco a chance? I can start my own business under their umbrella and build out a territory. And so I did that and did very well with that company, and ended up writing a lot of the training manuals and the actual training program that the rest of the company used for a long stretch of time, probably about a decade, maybe longer. And I learned real fast that, wow, I can make great money here, but it takes a lot of time. It is hard to systematize a business in a way that fully removes you, when to a certain degree you're the product or you're the brand, or it's hard to replace you often, right? And so I just realized that was going to be really challenging for me, and I did the best that I could, and I think I ran my business there in a way that was probably the least amount of time spent for the largest output for results, but it was also not as satisfying as what I was hoping for. And so I just remember thinking, gosh, what if I just replaced my income and I didn't have to do any of this? I didn't have to have a business. I didn't have to work for anyone.
You hadn't made any real estate investments up to this point, right? You're making money. You're making good money.
I did one real estate investment where I bought my own residence, but it was right at the peak of the financial crisis. And so basically I owned a piece of property in Chicago, a condo that I was upside down. I mean,
we were all there, by the way, or at least I was.
Yeah. I mean, and that was a mental drain. I mean, that's a whole story in itself, all the lessons learned, and thinking about the market and just the mental space that a negative cash flowing property has on you. Because at one point I lived there, and then I had the opportunity to take over more territory in the Cutco organization. So I moved. So that way I'd have, eventually I had 5 states that I, oversaw with anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 recruits a year. And so it was a great opportunity, but man, that was a mental drag on my life. And I remember showing up, I was like, I got to sell it. This thing's negative cash flow. It's a pain in the butt. Stuff's going wrong. I don't know how to do all this stuff. I showed up to the closing table after selling it, and I think I had to pony up it was either $120,000 or $130,000 at the closing table just to sell my own property. So that was my first real estate deal. And people are always like, well, why did you do another one?
Yeah, that obviously didn't stop you to, investing in real estate. So let's get to that first actual real estate deal that penciled a little better than the negative 120, 130,000.
Yeah. So I decided I need to pay attention to people that are doing this the right way. It's not that I don't believe in real estate. I have too many people around me that are doing well at it to know that it works. So I can't avoid the fact that this is a great asset class to get started to build wealth. But I decided I actually need a mentor. I need a blueprint. I need a playbook. In the last business, I had a little bit of it, but then I kind of created my own content, my own secret sauce to it. So I innovated it. I just need a framework that I can build on. And so I found a few people that were doing really well in real estate, and I tried to figure out what makes the most sense. And for many reasons, mobile home parks were it. And so I decided I had a friend that was doing it and selling all the single family homes because they were a lot more work than what he thought they were going to be. And they weren't generating as much cash flow as he wanted. And so he sold them and bought a mobile home park, and then pointed me in the direction of the people that he was learning from that I should probably learn from. And at the beginning, I was just the money. I was a hard money lender to him to help him get properties because it was low risk, and he was a friend and he was good at what he was doing. And there was plenty of room. Should something go wrong, I would get paid back. But then I started seeing his returns, and I was like, well, shoot, why am I just making 10%? I could be making a lot more than 10%. And, to my buddy's credit, he goes, yeah, you should be. I've been trying to tell you about this for a year. So, I'm a slow learner. So then I was like, okay, well, then I need to learn. And so I went to Frank, Rolf, and Dave Reynolds boot camp for mobile home parks. And Frank has become an incredible mentor of mine and a good friend. I just talked to him yesterday. We talk all the time. And I think the world of him. But I left that and I said, you know what? I can do this. And I cold called 100 different park owners and finally found one that my line was real simple. Hey, I'm looking to buy a mobile home park. Are you looking to sell one? It was really simple. Yep. And
hey man, you call enough though. It's like somebody.
That's right.
People overcomplicate it. Like that's that you're like just to the point.
That's right. And at the end of the day, I learned early in life that sales is a numbers game. And if I make enough calls or do enough demos or do whatever, then I'm going to eventually get a sale. And so it took 100 calls and I got a sale. I found a guy who said, you know what? Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to sell. And then it became a little bit of a dance to figure out. He goes, well, I'm going to see if, I can create some competition, and some other people entered into the fold and I had to win that. And so that took some sales skills as well. But that very first property I bought cash flowed enough after debt service to cover what my wife was earning as a teacher. So her annual income was within $1,000 of the profit after debt service of that mobile home park. So we retired her right out of the gates.
A little more tax efficient, maybe.
Yeah, way more tax efficient. There's no doubt.
And Justin, am I correct that you seller financed that first deal?
Yeah, that was seller finance. I only had to put 15% down.
I remember that from the book where he actually did the speaking in his own book. We were lazy. We hired that out for ours. But anyway, good job. You sounded great, by the way. But owner finance, first deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And by the way, I did a second deal with that same seller, and he did another seller finance with me. And I put.
Do you still own those parks?
I still own those parks. Yeah.
Nice.
Going back about 15 years now, which is pretty crazy to think about.
I wish I would have learned about mobile home parks 15 years ago. We bought ours in 2019. I think Mitch and I bought our first. Gabe figured it out before us because.
No, I bought my first park in 2019 as well.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah. 15 years ago, man, you could throw a rock and hit things at a 10 cap. Mobile home parks at a 10 cap.
But Justin, you retired your wife, but obviously you didn't stop there because, you own a decent amount of real estate. You own businesses. You have several companies. So what was kind of the next step? You retired your wife. Maybe we'd call that R1 for her, retirement one for her, but you didn't stop. So you did that seller finance deal. Your cash flowing good. Your wife's retired. What was next?
Well, park number 2 covered our survival income. So it wasn't quite to lifestyle. It was probably half of our lifestyle income, but it was enough for us to get by and for me to feel like I actually don't have to work. That was a huge burden to just think of all the things I had to juggle. The relief of saying, whoa, I actually don't have to work anymore. It got me to say, well, what all things do I not want to do? What can I delegate? So I actually started running a business more like a business owner where I was like, okay, well, I don't like this. I'm not even good at this. This person's great at this. This person's in the wrong seat. It gave me all the ability to make decisions that I was too afraid to make before because I didn't need the money from the business, right? So I made better decisions for the business.
That's such a good point. We talk about the magic happens when you sort of realize you don't have to work for other reasons. Like you have time to sink. But it also, I don't think we've ever mentioned this, that puts you in more of an offensive mindset as opposed to a scarcity mindset. That's a really interesting take on that.
Yeah, certainly. Well, and it's interesting because I grew that business. I started working less time in it, getting better results, empowering more people, creating more development. So that business started making more money when I worked less. And then I started saving and investing even more money. So I got to the point where I was investing half of what I was making every single year for a long stretch. So that was powerful. And so I remember buying our third property. And it also made it easier to pull the trigger on investments too, because now I'm not afraid. I've got some experience. At the beginning, I woke up in the middle of the night, freaked out. What am I doing? Am I throwing my money away? Buying a mobile home park? What am I doing?
And then the check came in the mail and you're like, nope.
Yeah,
that was a good job.
And this is before the check came in the mail. So I actually had to come to reality with emotions versus logic, right?
Oh my gosh.
Facts versus emotions. And so it's wait a minute, all these other people have been successful doing it. I have their roadmap. If I follow it, I'm at least going to be, 70% as good as them. Maybe at some point I can be as good as them, but 70% as good is better than what I'm doing right now. So I'm actually just going to let logic win here. And I'm going to pursue it, even though I'm scared to do it. I'm scared to take the step, but I'm just going to do it.
I remember waking up that morning, Travis and I bought our first park together. It was 39 units. Before that, I owned a duplex. That was the biggest property I had. And I was I wanted to throw up. I almost threw up the next morning. I'm oh my God, what did I do? And I had invested $85,000, which was all the money I had at the time. And my heart rate was way up. I was tangibly nervous. And
the sight of Mitch throwing up is not a sight we want to see. So I'm glad you.
It's not great. Yeah. Anyway, but I just want to say, I get that, and a lot of people don't do anything, whether it's business or real estate or whatever, because there's that fear. But once you get over, you also realize the world is not ending in a day. You've got time to adjust to anyway.
Well, yeah. Or people wait, you what? I bought a mobile home park there. What? You bought a what? Yeah. And they're not in the world. Yeah.
That's right. Well, that was a game changer for me once we bought that third park, because that covered our earned income. I take that back. That covered our lifestyle income. So that was true financial freedom. And then we sold that and rolled it up into 2 others. And that actually covered our earned income. So now you replace earned income with passive income. Taxes go way down to non-existent based on so many strategies you can do there. And instead of doubling up, I owned all my time. And it was a wonderful feeling. I had a clear schedule. We traveled the world for a year as a family, just figuring stuff out. I took a year off. Technically, we didn't travel that whole year, but I took that whole year off and we went to 13 countries and just had a blast and, tried to figure out what's next. What's the next chapter? What would be inspiring? What would allow me to, feel passion in my life? What would I need to be doing? And that really is where the Lifestyle Investor was formed, was on that trip. Thinking about what's next and what would I like to do with my life? What type of impact would I like to have?
Man, I wish I would have done that. I sold my company and jumped right into stuff. And I that's one regret I have is like take a year off. If you ever, if you're ever, and hopefully people listening to this will get to R1, we'll get to time freedom. Like I do highly recommend like take a year off and decompress because you had decades under your belt at that point, probably grinding. And like you said, working your ass off. And so I can't imagine how productive that time was, although maybe it didn't feel productive to just decompress, be introspective, think about what your next move is. What do you like? What do you don't like? What a gift.
Yeah, it was one of the best things that I ever did. I had heard it was going to be hard, and it was. I mean, after 5 weeks, I was pretty antsy. And then after, that, I kind of got into a groove. And then after 5 months, I got real antsy again. And then I got into a groove. But it was really nice. And something I should say is, while I was figuring out how to replace my income, I was doing some other things too. So like that year was much needed because I started a consulting company, doing all the things. Basically, I had been teaching people sales skills and recruiting and all these different things when I would speak, inside of the Cutco organization. And I thought, well, what if I taught this to outside companies? And so, I kind of built this consulting company that really started to gain some traction. And then I started a single family home maintenance company with some friends. So that was in there. And so, I was juggling a number of things. And so taking a year off really was something special because, my transition to financial freedom came with a whole lot of shots because I wasn't sure what one for sure was going to work or what wasn't, which things were going to fail, which things were going to be multipliers. So, yeah.
Do you think like you're way more successful today? And there's no way to tell, but like because of that year, like sometimes I just wonder if all of us need to step back. Maybe it's not a year, but a couple months, but like just to get the clarity, like to calm down our racing entrepreneurial minds, see the world. Like, I don't know. I almost feel like that could be the seed to something way greater than just never stopping.
Yeah, Mitch. I mean, I think there's a lot of truth to that because if you look at a lot of professions out there, it's mandated that every 10 years you take at least a 5-week sabbatical, right? So there's a ton of professions that like it, and there's a lot of research backing that, the power of doing that. So it doesn't have to be a year. It can be, a couple months or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think it's so important because otherwise you're in reactionary mode. You're not taking time to actually proactively create and figure out what that looks like and doing that with your spouse and, figuring out next steps. So for me, am I more successful because I took that year off? Maybe. I think what I actually am is more aligned with more clarity about the role that I want to play in the world and what brings me joy and satisfaction, where I can live in passion, and that to me, regardless of what I made or make, that's more important. So for me, I just feel like I'm doing what I am meant to do. I love it. I love it every day. And I love my schedule because I only work 3 days a week and it's awesome. And I put in good time those days and I have extended weekends every weekend. And so that to me is like the right structure for me. So it's if we're talking about success based on being in alignment with like a life well lived, yes, I think that year was critical to it. Now, I also think that if you figure out what it is that you want to do and you're willing to take some risks and you've got a creative brain or you're hanging around creative people, you can figure out how to monetize those things as well. Because I've been able to monetize almost everything that I love to do.
I love hearing you say that. Justin, I'm curious from your perspective, why do you think that some people have a hard time or struggle with achieving time freedom or lifestyle? Do you believe it's a lack of mindset, lack of clarity, lack of alignment? Like, I think a lot of people go, "Hey, that's great, good for Justin. Good, I'm glad he has that clarity." Is it that lack of clarity, lack of action from your perspective and from what you've witnessed with the people you're around? What separates those that have achieved that versus those that have not?
I think some of it's certainly mindset. I think a lot of it's belief. A lot of people don't believe they can do it. Other people don't feel like they have a roadmap on how to do it. A lot of people are just afraid to try something new or to get out of their comfort zone. So, I mean, all those I think are major factors. I mean, there's definitely a group of people that are like, the badge of honor is working hard, and I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to move up the ladder. But those people, I think, fail to recognize that in 5 to 10 years, they're probably not going to feel the same way. So even though today they may say, oh, that stuff, that's for other people. I don't need that. I'm good. I'm crushing. I'm making a lot of money. I'm, moving up the corporate ladder. In 10 years, that same person is likely saying, man, I wish I had paid attention. I wish I had bought some rental properties. I wish I had done something so that way I had options today. It's not like, and for me, it's not that you just leave what you're doing. It's that you have the option to leave what you're doing.
I always say this, it comes down to choices. Like, it's not the material items. It's, I have choices in life to live life on my own terms. So you had 3 mobile home parks, Justin. And I'm reading your bio. Like, if you want to get in a room with some amazing people, get in the room with Justin. Like, you own franchises, you own operating businesses. Like, what does your real estate portfolio look like today? What does your business portfolio look like? We all love business. We all love real estate. So we'd love to could you wrap on that for a little bit and what your portfolio looks like?
Yeah, sure. And by the way, what I should also say is the reason I've been able to buy so many assets is because I got into surplus income. So I got to the, beyond the lifestyle income. So all my lifestyle is covered, but every dollar over that is surplus income. And so people can either use that for consumption to like live a bigger, greater life, or they can reinvest it, or they can do a combination of both. And for me, I was aggressively reinvesting those dollars. And if you think about it, we talked about how, a lot of people are great at making money. Very few are good at multiplying money. Well, let me tell you how I multiplied money. What I did is, if you look at, early in my career, I worked really hard to save. I remember at one point I was trying to save 15%, and then it was 20%. And then at the end of, what I would call like my professional career, early days professional career, was that I was saving 50% of what I was making. But it took a long time to build up to that, right? But with surplus income, I now have 100% of those dollars that can go towards multiplying wealth or impact. And so if you think about it from that standpoint, that's a total flip-flop. So I just was really aggressive with investing. So what did that look like? Well, the more mobile home parks I bought, the more cash flow I had. The more cash flow I had, the more I had a new problem that sounds like a crazy problem, which is I had more money than I knew what to do with. And that doesn't, I'm sure there are people listening like, oh, poor you, that's not a real problem. But I don't want to make poor choices. Like I don't want to squander what's been given to me. So I take it very seriously. And so I worked hard to diversify out of just being in one asset class. Even though I like mobile home parks the best, I started getting into industrial. I started getting into multifamily. I started getting into single family homes. I did some land deals. I did some self-storage. I've probably done everything that there is to do, unless it's super obscure in the world of real estate. I've done some retail. I've done some office. I've literally done almost everything. And my largest holding is still mobile home parks today. My second largest holding is industrial. Our mobile home park portfolio is a top 75 in terms of size portfolio in the US. It might even be closer to top 50, but it's for sure top 75. And then, we've got a ton of other assets. So having the cash flow is like, well, I need to figure out how to spread this out. Like if you look at the wealthiest families in the world, and if you study the data just specifically in the US, you'll actually find a lot of similarities and commonality to the way that the asset allocation looks for these families. So when I talk about these families, I'm talking about centimillionaires, demi-billionaires, billionaires. So think 100 million to, 50 billion, right? Like big time wealth creators. And there is a very, I would say it's almost a standard or close to standard protocol that they've got about 15 to 25% of their net worth in the stock market. By the way, that's it. A lot of people think it's a lot more than that. They got about 15 to 25% in real estate. they've got about 20 to 30% in private equity. And then the other 25% is in everything else: fixed income, cash equivalent, private credit, hedge fund, crypto. For those families that do crypto, it's usually about 1%. Precious metals, infrastructure, commodities. And most of those are like 1, 2, 3, 4%, right? Ventures in there somewhere between 4 and 7%. And I just said, well, I need to start modeling my portfolio like the wealthiest people out there. I can't have all my asset classes, I can't have all my assets in one asset class, which was mobile home parks. And then it was like, I can't have it in one, like sector, real estate. So then I started looking at private credit, and I started doing, a bunch of deals there, funds and one-offs. And then I started doing private equity and investing in companies, but much more later stage than early stage, because we all know the odds of hitting it big with an early company. 99% of the time the companies die. But there is a law of numbers with that too. Most people, they make 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 bets into an early stage company, but they don't know for 15, 20 years that they lost their money, and they keep doing it, and it's probably not good for them. But at volume, if you can have money in, there are funds that will do larger swaths, and some of the ones that I do are like, hundreds of companies. That's a much more likely way to get a return on those dollars. But early stage is so risky. That's only 1% of my portfolio. But I wanted to have some fixed income. I wanted to always have liquidity, always have some cash flow to be able to do something. Those are just a few of the things I think about and how I expanded. So yeah, I bought businesses, I bought some franchises, I bought what I would call streams of cash flow off of assets in a lot of different areas. And most of them have done really well.
Justin, what percentage, I'm just curious, in like, I love this percentage, this asset allocation, because I was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you, what of your allocations is in paper assets like stocks, bonds? So I think you answered my question there. If you're modeling in these families, what do you find a lot of these families hold in cash?
Usually it's 5 to 10%. Every now and again, you'll see 15%, but usually it's 5 to 10%.
So, okay. So you went out, you bought a bunch of businesses, you own franchises, you own this home improvement business. You're a lifestyle guy. So I know what people are thinking right now, because I ran a company, but it was like all I did, right? How do you achieve lifestyle design when you're buying, like, who runs your mobile home park portfolio? Who runs these businesses? Because I know if you're like most people that are scaling and you're a lifestyle guy, it's not you. I mean, you might be on the board, you might be setting strategic direction, you might be managing the assets at a much higher level, but like, tell us a little bit about what that looks like at your level.
I think the danger in any business, I talked about this. The first thing we talked about is like, as you're scaling a business, you're almost buying another job. So you got to be careful that, your passive income isn't growing to a place that your assets now own you again.
And it's not passive anymore, by the way.
It's not passive. That's right. Yeah. That's right. So, that's one thing. So yeah, we built an infrastructure on the real estate side of things, and we've got a team that runs that. And then I refuse to ever buy a business that doesn't have an operator. Like it's a non-starter. If there's not someone either A, in my network that I know really well that would do a good job, that's already said, yes, I'm in, or B, it comes with an operator that is already doing a great job, that is willing to stick around for the long haul, that I can incentivize to keep, then I have zero interest in buying it, because I don't want to buy a job. And that's the greatest risk with buying a business, is buying a job or starting a franchise.
You're buying these businesses for like a lifetime cash flow or long-term cash flow? Or are you doing I'm going to buy businesses, roll up, get EBITDA to albatross, maybe exit them, or is it a combination of the two? And this is not real estate, but I'm like genuinely interested in this stuff. So sorry, everybody. We'll get back to real estate, to your normally scheduled program here in a second.
I think in some instances it will work as a roll up, but that's never been the strategy. I have just picked businesses that I think make sense, that are in a space that I think has, total recession resistance, and that I can find many skilled operators to run. So if someone doesn't work out, I can get someone else in there. Now, some of these are complementary to one another. Some of these we've sold as a one-off. Some of these we have sold collectively. If I wanted to roll some stuff up, we probably could do that. I'm also careful on that front because, a roll-up acquisition is going to actually require a different team and a different management structure than what I currently have in place, even though I likely can roll up several of what I have together. So the end
cash
goal
flow
is
first.
not that. It is cash flow first for me.
Yeah.
What kind of businesses, Justin, do you like? Or when you say recession resistant, give us a couple examples of maybe some businesses that you currently own and are holding that you feel like are in a strong sector.
Well, I love home services. I mean, I've done well in that. Plumbing companies, HVAC companies, those are your two largest businesses in the home services side of things, largest margin, at least profit margin, and just a huge need. You've got a lot of baby boomers that are retiring that are either going to sell or just shut down their business. And so the demand is greater, I think, right now than the amount of companies that can service it. So I love that space. I love, anything else on the home services that can be pretty recession resistant. I did really well with a dog training company. I mean, that sounds crazy, but even during COVID, people were buying more and more dogs, so that was a huge success for us. Yeah.
And Justin, are these both franchises and from mom and pop owners, or is it one or the other?
Yeah, they're both. I mean, we've done an Orange Theory Fitness and some Kids Strong locations, and so those were started from scratch. The other businesses were purchases, and they were existing. Well, I take that back. Our home service, our single family home maintenance company, we started from scratch. But some of the other ones I've been involved in have been, just we've bought existing. Like there's a laundromat and like a white labeled on demand, laundry service and whatnot. So like a lot of these are just great. And then I come into a lot of investments as an LP. I've done somewhere in the vicinity of 400 different investments that I'm an LP or a limited partner in that partnership. So I'm not actively doing anything except providing capital, and where I can strategically use my network to benefit the deal, I do it.
Is that on the real estate and the business side?
Both. Yeah. That'd be a combo. Maybe it's 200 and 200 or something. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's probably, I don't know, maybe it's close to a 50-50 split or a 60-40 split.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you mentioned, bringing your network in, and you touched on this a little bit. How important do you think your network is and relationships are?
That's the single greatest, advantage and an opportunity I think that exists to up level. If you want to go from one place to another place, if you want to go from level A to level B, or if you want to go from D3 to D1 or whatever it is, like however you're thinking about leveling up, if you want to go from $1 million net worth to 10 million net worth to 50 million to 100 million to $1 billion, what does that look like? Well, I think the fastest way to do it is through peer group and through mentorship. I don't think there's any faster, better way than that. And that's why, like, I'm in counting my two masterminds. I have Lifestyle Investor Mastermind and Tribe of Investor Mastermind. Counting those two, I'm in 16 masterminds, so 14 others, because to me, it's important that I am around people that stimulate my thinking, that help me learn, help me grow, people I can partner with on stuff. So, I mean, I put my money where my mouth is, and I spend somewhere around 200 to 350,000 a year on the masterminds I'm in and the coaches that I have hired.
You hear that, everybody? Yeah, we always, so mindset's a big part of our tribe. It's a big part of it's one of the main pillars. And we say that the quickest mindset hack is get around people that are doing what you want to be doing or have achieved what you want to do. I love that. There was one last tactical question I wanted to ask you before I run out of time. Of all of your businesses, real estate, home services businesses, franchise, what has generated the highest amount of cash on cash for you?
Well, the highest cash on cash is outside of like abnormal returns. I mean, we've had our mobile home parks generally are anywhere from 20% to 106% cash on cash return for our deals. So 106% is the most I've ever made in 1 year in year one on a mobile home park. But I have a ton that are within 30 to 60% cash on cash return.
And is that after you return capital, or is that right out of the gate?
Well, I've never raised money. We've only bought parks ourselves.
I mean, I'm sorry, return capital to yourself. So like you put money down, you operate it, you approve it, you force appreciate it, and then refinance maybe, pull capital back out of it. Do you count that? Or is that just like I went in and I made 60% cash on cash based on my down payment?
We just went in and that's what we made cash on cash. I mean, none of this was factored based on a refi.
Wow. Mitch, why don't you find us some of those deals? What are you doing?
Well, it's not. Because it's not 15 years ago, Travis. Okay, no, I'm joking.
No, well, that was my next question. Like, what are you doing now?
Like a
what are
fixed
you buying?
mindset there, Mitch.
Right. Yeah, that's a limiting mindset. Can you mute Mitch and Mike? Because he's gonna bring
I was
everybody's
just
mindset
giving you
down.
guys an example of a limiting mindset. Okay,
Yeah,
just
scarcity
relax.
mindset right there, Mitch England. So are you buying mobile home parks now? Because I mean, the other thing we see is we have a lot of our elites, which is our higher tier mastermind, like, and we buy mobile home parks, all of us. Like, people are seeing this space picked over quite a bit. Are you still out there? Do you still see it as a viable asset class? Are you looking at maybe more multifamily class B stuff? I'm just curious, like on the real estate side, what you're looking at these days.
I mean, I think mobile home parks and industrial dominate the real estate space. Right now, they have for a period of time. I mean, if you look at the numbers for the last 6 years, maybe even 7 years now, they are the 1 and 2 top performing real estate asset classes, asset classes in real estate.
Oh, weird. Those are my two favorite.
Yeah. So those are, to me, a slam dunk. Now, with real estate, your upside is a little bit more capped and your downside is a little more protected. I mean, we can talk about some of these businesses. That dog training company, we bought it and sold it in a year and a day and made 11x on our money, almost 12, just 11.9x on our money on that deal, just by revamping SEO, getting more clients in the funnel, booking more appointments, and creating more awareness. There's another deal that I did where I basically leveraged my network, offered a blueprint on how to create a model, and then negotiated a top line rev share with that company. And in the early days, it was paying, I don't know, $4,000 a month, maybe it was even as little as $2,000 a month. Somewhere between $2,000 and $6,000 a month, usually $4,000 to $6,000 a month. And then I remember it growing to $10,000. Then it was $20,000. Then it was $30,000. And then, that business today is generally $40,000 to $50,000 a month. Just that one single investment that I already, and this is years ago. This is like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago or something, right? And it's just been, so from a straight up return standpoint, that one's probably the biggest return, because that one's like millions of dollars and my total investment was less than 500,000.
Jeez, unbelievable.
What type of business? Did I miss that? What business was that?
That was also in the home maintenance space.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was homemade. Okay, got it. Okay.
By the way, a takeaway here, there's something that Justin has mentioned. This is from some of our listeners. I've heard you use and we're big on this, we've heard you use the word framework a lot. Like a framework, like I needed a framework. Like you talked about the 4 quadrants, which I love it. How do you make it? How do you manage it? How do you multiply it? How do you make it matter? Man, I wrote that down. I'm going to take that away. But also framework, like I realized I wanted to buy mobile home parks. I needed a framework for that. I realized that I needed, we followed this framework. We blueprinted this framework. And so we have something we call the R1 framework at a little plug here with the 0-100 tribe. Like we call it the R1 framework. Like it's, 5 phases, pillars per phase, very specific steps. How do you achieve time freedom? Something else you mentioned too that I wanted to just reiterate was a lot of times I feel they get diluted. They're like mobile home park, apartment building, this, that. Like I feel like, and I wonder if you'd agree with me or not, because I think this is the way you did it. We always, pick an asset class to get to R1, to get all your time to replace your living and lifestyle expenses, your earned income. Pick an asset class, become really, really damn good at it, understand the nuances, build a network around that, get your time back, and then maybe start diversifying into other things like business acquisitions or franchises or other real estate asset classes. But would you agree with that? That people that are working a W-2 job and maybe they're looking at the vehicle of real estate to generate an outsized cash flow returns to sort of hit this sort of R1 number, would you recommend they stick to like get really good at an asset class, get there, take a break, and then expand out from there?
My answer is going to be partially yes and partially no. So let me expand on that. That, by the way, is what I did. So I have a lot of belief in that and I really like it. But I like it a lot more if you have ownership and control. Like if you have control of it and you can make the decisions and you can muscle it where you need to. I like that. If we're talking about a passive investor, you're an LP, you don't have control. I actually don't like all your assets into a single deal, into a single asset class, into a single niche. I actually like it a lot more diversified, just in case you're not good at picking deals or picking sponsors, or like that way you just have more potential to get it right, have more irons in the fire that could work out.
Love it. Yep. Yeah. If you're going to be operating it. Yeah. I love it. I'll ask the second to the last question, and then Mitch or Gabe can arm wrestle over the final question we ask all our guests. How do people get a hold of you? I know you have the Lifestyle Investor Mastermind, which, by the way, I'm actually interested in joining that personally. So maybe I'll talk to you about that offline, or talk to your people, because you're a lifestyle guy, right? So I'm sure you have people for that. But like, how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way people can follow you? You're an amazing author. You run a mastermind. You got a lot going on. What's the easiest way people can get a hold of you?
Probably just lifestyleinvestor.com. I mean, everything that we offer is there. I've got free stuff from a blog and downloadable resources, tons of them, like really good quality content, to an online course, to a few different master classes on mobile home park investing, on how to create passive income, on tax strategy, on vetting deals. We did this awesome vetting deals course just recently that launched. So our mastermind, an application there. We're on a wait list right now, but we're always looking for awesome people that, in time we might be able to bring into that community. And I also wanted to say, with the book, the Lifestyle Investor book, the new updated and expanded edition just came out. So you can get that on the website, or you can get it on Amazon, but that's 25%, or just under 25% more content added to that book, and tons of stuff on like tax strategy and deals and just a number of things. But all the proceeds, again, from the Lifestyle Investor book, go to fight human trafficking. So we now, as a top 1% of all books ever sold, we have now been able to give hundreds of thousands of dollars to these humanitarian efforts. So
I saw the Tebow Foundation. So Brandon invests, or he's not invests. I'm sorry. He's got the Better Life Tribe. Brandon Turner is a friend of ours.
I love Brandon.
Yeah.
Friend of mine too.
Yeah. You're a little more clean cut than Brandon, but so maybe you can move me up on your backup list to your mastermind. And Gabe, right? So maybe I can get in by my relationship with Gabe, or something like
that. I'll tell you this right now.
Don't let this Travis character in.
Travis, if you apply, I give you my word, I will move you literally to the top of the wait list. Because this has been a lot of fun. And by the way, to anyone in your network that just wants to figure out like what's next, we generally do we do these consultations and strategy sessions with people to help them figure out how to go from point A to point B. It's usually $500, $497. But for anyone in your network that would like to just experience what that looks like, we'll do it for free for your community. So if someone goes to if you go to lifestyleinvestor.com/consultation, we will waive the fee and you can meet with someone on our team there. And then we also have a live event in September, which is fun. We're actually rolling out, we have two different events, one live member meetup and an event where we're bringing a few non-members, which we rarely do that. So we're doing, I think we're only doing 10 seats that are non-members. So you get to interact with all the members. And then we're doing Lifestyle Investor Foundations, which is our young adults program that we are officially launching for 18 to 29-year-olds. So that both are happening in September back to back.
I love what you're doing, and I would love to join, because they say fly with the eagles, and with the exception of Gabe, I've been hanging out with buzzards. This is awkward. So,
hey, what about me? Great. Come on.
So, Mitch and Gabe, why don't you take us out of here on the final podcast question?
So this question, we love this question. This is the last question we ask every single guest. It's a hypothetical, okay? And I'll build the scenario here, and then we'll ask the question. So you're on your buddy's couch. You lost everything, all of your money, all of your contacts. We actually took away the network. We used to give people the network, but now we're taking that away because it's like, okay, we got to make it hard. No money, no contacts, no network, no anything. But you have your knowledge, you have your experience, you have all of that. What do you do? What does your first 30 days look like to go build a real estate portfolio, to build a business, to get free again and get your life back?
Well, I would definitely go back and find a real estate deal that cash flowed. I'd probably do it via mobile home park since I know it the best. The whole reason I waited so long to get started there is because I had this false belief that I actually had to have the money to do the investment. Whereas now I realize, shoot, if you have a good deal, money's abundant. It's easy. So I don't even need to have money. I just need to have a good deal. And I know I can, because of my past, I know that I can work hard. I have the work ethic. I can dig deep again. And I would just smile while I dial, and I would call until I found a park, and I would buy it, and I would cover my bare minimum necessities first and foremost, and then move on from there.
Love it. Justin, thank you so much for being on today. So many golden nuggets there, and I appreciate you very much.
Hey, my pleasure. This is fun.